Hello, Stuffiest crew, and today we'll be doing another reaction vid. Yay.
In Java, armor stands look like this, but in Bedrock, they can be upside down. And did you know the Wither has different spawn animations depending on the version? And these are 51 differences between Java and Bedrock Minecraft. And hey, I heard a YouTube
We can skip
case, proving once again that armor stands are way worse on Java Edition than they've ever been on Bedrock. This piston only exists in Bedrock, because as we can see from element X, we're able to summon in a special piston in Bedrock that's kept at a certain state, meaning that we have partially extended pistons, but only in Bedrock Edition. In Java, if you were to shear sheep that has colorful wool, the sheared sheep will just look like it has white wool. But in Bedrock Edition, the little scraps of wool that are left behind will actually still be the same color as the sheep, keeping that consistency. This skin is only possible on Bedrock Edition, since in Java, if you were to have transparent pixels in the first skin layer, it'll just turn them black instead. But in Bedrock, that's not the case, and the only requirement for Bedrock is that you have just one visible pixel, making for this perfect camouflage skin. While Java Edition no longer has the far lands, in Bedrock Edition, there does exist something called the stripe lands, which is that if you were to go 16,777,216 blocks in either direction, you'll eventually come across this special area where the blocks don't exist, and half of them aren't even rendered, causing this weird effect. If you watch closely, you'll notice that in Bedrock Edition, Steve actually blinks. But in Java, that's not the case for Steve, Alex, or any of the new skin variants added in. And thank goodness,
creepy.
It's pretty creepy to watch. In every Java world, you're gonna find 128 strongholds that spawn. That's it, no more, nor less. But in Bedrock, things work differently, as a random amount of these structures can spawn, and they'll also spawn in a random way, meaning you might be able to get this site where two portals spawned right next to each other, which is cool, but it really feels impractical too. Functionally, barrels aren't that different between Java and Bedrock, but when you try to craft them, that's where the difference sets in. Since in Java, the crafting recipe for these requires planks, but in Bedrock, you need sticks, which might be the reason why we're able to push these with a piston in Bedrock. They're just lighter. In Java, a spider jockey looks like this, but on Bedrock Edition, we have a whole bunch of other jockeys to choose from. In fact, there's up to 12 different variants in this version alone, which is a lot more terrifying. And I think this is a rare case where it's actually nice not to have a feature in Java. If I were to get shot by an arrow, you realize that in Java, the arrows get visually stuck inside the player. But in Bedrock, we shrug them off and they're not a part of the model, which seems safer, but in both
Bedrock's not as fun as Java Edition.
cases you're still getting shot, so maybe it's not that much better either way. Banners are so much better in Java, because over here, we're able to put them on shields, and also right-click them with the map to use as markers. Whereas in Bedrock, they're just what it says on the tin. A decoration, nothing else. This is a dolphin, and this is a baby dolphin. But you'll only find the baby versions of these mobs over on the Bedrock Edition. And the same goes for squids and glow squids. But considering you can't breed the mobs on either version, you can only find these by them spawning in. With the help of sand blocks, we're able to drop one of these gravity blocks above us and use that to walk through a wall. But that's only worth trying on Bedrock, since in Java, it'll just push you out of the way. In Java, desert wells look like this. Pretty basic, but on Bedrock, they couldn't leave well enough alone. And that's why you'll find twice as many desert wells that spawn on Bedrock. And there can even be times where 2 wells spawn instead of just 1, which seems like a lot for such a pointless structure. You should be careful pressing the jump button in Bedrock Edition, because while flying
in the elytra and you press the jump button, which I lost my survival world, which I was trying to make it hardcore in Bedrock Edition, but you can't, so I just got a hardcore mod. But I pressed space and I failed.
With an elytra, if you were to press the jump button again, it'll cancel out your gliding and you'll just be falling like that. Luckily in Java, the same doesn't happen, making it a lot safer. In recent updates, dispensers are a lot more accurate in Java than they are in Bedrock. And it means that anything that you shoot out of a dispenser in Java doesn't have the randomness present that we see in Bedrock. And a comparison like this makes that quickly noticeable. Here's why evokers are much scarier on Java than they are on Bedrock. Since while they're not able to open up doors in Bedrock Edition, in Java, we're not as lucky, which makes these illager mobs a lot more intimidating for us and our villagers. If you were to get a glass pane inside of your inventory in both versions, then you'll notice that in Bedrock, they have a 3D icon, while in Java, the glass panes use a 2D sprite, which could be a problem if you were to dye your glass pane, since a light gray stained glass pane is a lot more obvious in Bedrock than it's ever been in Java. In both Java and Bedrock, parrots are able to dance, but in Bedrock only, if you get a parrot on top of your shoulder, it's still able to have a dance party up there. there, which is a lot more fun, and I'm kind of jealous that we don't have this on Java. In Bedrock Edition, it's possible to make a map with just one piece of paper using a cartography table, which is a lot cheaper than it is on Java, although you're not actually going to be able to see where you are in that map until you craft it with a compass, which in that way, the two versions are similar. In these cauldrons, we don't have potions, but rather dyed water, because in Bedrock, it's possible to use different dyes within water sources to change the color of the water and then dye your armor. But in Java, yet again, the cauldrons are pointless. In Bedrock, it's possible to mine a furnace or an enchantment table without using a pickaxe, and the item will still drop, which is a bit confusing considering that they're made out of blocks that don't drop without a pickaxe anyway in either version. But I'm not complaining if it means I get to save the durability of my diamond pickaxe. In Bedrock, you'll notice that your baby horse has an extra step before it becomes an adult, because in this version only, there's a teenage phase between the two variants. But in Java, we skip through the awkward phase and just get to the point where we can actually ride them with a saddle. The next time you're on fire, you might want to look for a candle, because while it won't help, in Bedrock Edition, it is possible to light a candle while your body's on fire. And the same also goes for campfires as well, which doesn't solve your problem, but it might kill two birds with one stone. This is what happens when we fall into the void in Java, but in Bedrock, the void is covered up by an invisible floor, meaning that we don't have to take damage anymore, which is good, because in Java, we die to the void even in creative mode. In Java, salmon looks like this, and in Bedrock, it looks oh so much bigger. And the reason for that is that in Bedrock Edition, there are 3 different sizes of salmon that you can find. But in Java, we just got the one. And salmon isn't the only mob you're not going to see any difference. Pistons behave pretty differently between Java and Bedrock, because in them, you're not going to see any difference. Pistons behave...
Look, see this right here? Try to circle it right here where my mouse is at. Look at that little, like, thing.
Behave pretty differently.
And look at that. None.
Between Java and Bedrock, because in Java, if you deactivate them, they pull back instantaneously, but in Bedrock, there is a delay to their deactivation, which is a pretty noticeable difference when you try to build a system like this, and it probably is why a lot of your redstone systems from Java don't work in Bedrock and vice versa. What's the difference between these two shipwrecks? Well, in Bedrock Edition, it's possible for a shipwreck to spawn made out of acacia wood, but you're only going to find it in that version, which I think means we can infer that all the boats made out of acacia wood are either still floating on Java, or that any boats made out of acacia wood were just doomed to sink and not worth building in the first place. But at least we can still craft an acacia boat this way. Ever since 1.9, Java's had it where you need to attack with a cooldown to be able to get the full strength out of your attack. But in Bedrock, that's not a feature that's added in, so you can spam to your heart's content and win the fight that way. This mob is only in Java.
Yeah, we can skip that.
And in Java Edition, then the detection range of a creeper that you stand next to gets cut in half, meaning it doesn't recognize that you're a threat until you get much closer. And the same goes if you're wearing a zombie head next to a zombie and a skeleton skull next to a skeleton. But in Bedrock, you'll still want to keep your distance. Why does the water look so gross on Bedrock? Well, it's supposed to be that way, since in Bedrock, the water will look different with its color and tint depending on which biome it's in. Whereas in Java, the water changes colors depending on the body of water, whether it's a cold ocean or a warm one. In Java Edition, we're able to cook our stuff in a furnace using wool, bows, carpet, and ladders. But none of those can be used as fuel in Bedrock Edition, which is a shame, especially when you can build a carpet duplication machine like this and smelt a lot more stuff on Java. But Bedrock lets you use gold nuggets as fuel, so they're not exactly a cheaper option. Steak does not exist in Bedrock Edition, which begs the question, what happens if you cook beef? Well, perhaps unsurprisingly, in Bedrock Edition only, if you do this, you're left with an item called cooked beef, whereas in Java, it's called steak. If you got some soul sand and wither skulls, you can see this difference happen, because when we spawn in the wither on Bedrock Edition, the boss actually turns white before it spawns, which contrasts what we see on Java where it turns blue before it heals all the way up. And considering that the Bedrock version has way more health than the one on Java, I think we should take this as a white flag and use it for our surrender. By using the dispenser, we're able to attach the heads of different mobs on top of villagers. And that's because in Java, they're able to wear armor, but in Bedrock, not so much. Since again, that's an old piece of dormant code that was never planned to be added into Bedrock anyway. And with that, folks, YouTube thinks that you might like this video, so see if they're right.
Thank you for watching the video. So I can raise my camera up. So I'll see y'all next video. Good.